Hello YouTube, this is Airland here with another Wargame Airland Battle Beta video. Today we're going to be moving on to Poland, and I'm going to be reviewing them, discussing their strengths and weaknesses, the new units, the new game, all that kind of stuff. Pretty much exactly like the last video, but Polish instead of USSR. Now, before this video really starts, I'm going to point out a few things about this match. One, it is a no time limit total destruction game. I was not aware of that, which means it's going to be a quite long match. Second, one of our players was AFK and one guy surrendered within the first 40 seconds, which didn't exactly help our chances of survival. So everything you see, take note of that, okay? Because remember, it's a 2-on-4 situation. Right, so starting off, I was going my usual route towards Kjartan and Michael, but because of this unexpected surrender, I've had to redeploy some of my resources, although some of them were given to me by a surrender. So what I was going to do is, the AFK guy still holds the spawn point there, so what I'm going to do is move a sort of general defensive force into the one above it. I think it's Echo, I can't remember though, and I'm going to move it up into there and secure, nope, it's Anna. So move forces into Anna and then secure it, so that even if we aren't, so I can continue to concentrate on the left side of the map while still holding enough points. It's not exactly a good strategy, but it's the only one I felt would make sense at this time. So moving on to Polish forces, from using them for a couple of games, they seem to be like the opposite of the USSR, where they have much cheaper units than the USSR, and they can usually deploy them in much greater numbers than the USSR. However, they lack high-end units. So I'm just going to start by going over the logistics vehicles. They have a keep transport helicopter, a very cheap but very poorly armored supply truck. They have a not a main battle tank, a command tank, but you only deploy one of them, and it's a T-55, so it's not that well armored. And they have about three command IFVs, I guess you could say. I guess armored command vehicles, but I believe they are equipped with a basic cannon to defend themselves. Let's see, moving on to the recon. They have a good variety of recon, I have to say. That's one of the good things, the advantages of Poland, one of their strengths. They have a good high-end recon unit. It's fairly expensive at 45, but it's a very good recon unit. Then they have a more basic recon unit, which is sort of like the PT-76 from Wargame, European Escalation. Then they have a recon helicopter, and then they have recon infantry, which are brought in on an Mi-24P. So ironically, Poland's best helicopter gunship is used as an infantry transport. So, you know, it's a really strong side of Poland. Moving on to their infantry, they have the basic riflemen, which are I find them to be lacking somewhat in infantry on infantry combat, but they're cheaper than the Motorstrzelki. But then again, they come in worse transport. It's only a basic one, which is fast but has machine guns, which was one of Poland's usual strengths. Then they also had some Fago anti-tank infantry, some Sapori engineers, and some Strela infantry. That's actually an interesting note, which is that the USSR does not have any anti-aircraft infantry, whereas Poland does. So that's something to take account of. So as you can see here, I'm just pushing up into Michael. My infantry, I was going to try and get them into the town before they met any opposition. However, as you can see, they did. So I'm just trying to get them into the town before they take too much damage. Elsewhere, I'm trying to create a anti-aircraft blanket, which is much harder for Poland to do because they don't have as good anti-aircraft vehicles. Basically, they have a reasonably accurate A launcher, a slightly worse A launcher, a Shavika AAA, and a general artillery piece, which is quite good, I have to say. So as you can see, I'm moving up my tanks to try and knock out their tanks to secure more of the town, because again, Michael, it's all about the town. So I'm just going to invest in infantry to take the town. As you can see here, the USMC tanks are blocked by the Rouge, which is quite good, because I think their tanks might be slightly better than my T55Ls, which obviously the T55 is a pretty cute tank. So I'm using the cover of the forest to try and get a flanking force. Also, hopefully, with them shooting down into the valley, I can hit them in their rear armor, doing maximum damage. Moving on, actually that brings us to moving on to the tanks. Poland has access to a sort of PT-76 non-recon version, which is very cheap at 10 points, but then it's pretty rubbish. You know, it's just a very bad tank. Then you have the T-55, which is their main battle tank. Obviously it's pretty bad in comparison to most main battle tanks, but it's cheap. And then you have access to the TO-55, which is basically a T-55 but with a flamethrower. Which isn't that much of an upgrade, but for those who like it, that's all fair and square. As you can see here, I'm using Gets a lot more often than before, because Poland, actually, their air force is one of their strengths. They have access to a variety of Gets ranging from 85 to 95 points, and can call in a fair number of them. So that's definitely one of Poland's strengths. They have a much stronger air force than the Soviet Union does in this beta. Obviously the Gets probably won't be as good as the Soviet Union's Gets, but then again, they don't really need to be. So as you can see here, the last of the enemy's tanks were ambushed in the town and knocked off by various airstrikes and infantry. So I'm repositioning my T-55s to try and hit out their anti-aircraft positions and their mortars. Mortars are doing quite a bit of damage to the infantry in the town, and as you can see, they got Delta Force dug in deep into the town, and Delta Force are very good infantry units. So one more M8A, can't make that out, M48, okay, that's just called the USMC tank. So the USMC tanks were still hiding behind the village, but it's panicked, so we should be able to finish it off with the T-55s. However, they have taken quite a battering. Now I can't say much about the aircraft because, you know, I've been using them in the heat of battle and I can't actually tell what they're for. I think Eugen might want to clarify that, like what's the role of each aircraft. But I'm guessing that the one on the right, the MiG, is an air-to-air aircraft, and the other two are ground attack ones of varying degrees of effectiveness. So as you can see here, my anti-aircraft units are quite busy, so I'm just buying a few more supplies into them. There's the SOP supply truck. So yeah, at the moment we've got a slight points advantage over NATO at 1300 to 925. But as you can see, we're exclusively fighting on the left side of the map around Michael, whereas NATO can take the entire rest, the rest of the map almost unopposed, which could give them a significant economical advantage in the later rounds. So as you can see, there's their mortars, and also we've secured Michael, which has allowed me to deploy more anti-aircraft vehicles. Seeing as NATO seems to be relying quite heavily on Jets, I decided to reprioritize and buy in the last of my advanced anti-aircraft defense systems and some supply trucks to keep them firing. Also, NATO's bringing in their own anti-aircraft because I guess we were using our Jets a bit too much. They tried to stop it by bringing in several convoys of flak panzers. I'm guessing that they were planning to secure Michael because these took their time getting here, and we've already secured Michael by the time they've arrived, meaning they have to face directly onto T-55Ls. And you have to remember the T-55 is a pretty cheap tank, so the flak panzers can do a bit of damage to it if they can swarm it, but the T-55, it's still a tank. Elsewhere, more anti-aircraft missile batteries have been brought in, but yeah, they're not really much of a threat, and I can bring in T-55s to combat them. They're the tracked Rapier. I think that's a British unit, or a QB Canadian. I haven't really played much in NATO yet, so I can't really comment on that. Elsewhere, the artillery is sort of starting to annoy me because artillery is particularly effective against Pact, because to avoid artillery you have to either take it out, which is much easier said than done, or you have to keep moving your units around so the artillery can't hit them. But because Pact units especially keep stuff like the T-55 doesn't have a good stabilizer, you're forcing into a maneuver on maneuver combat, which is definitely where NATO has their strong point. So as you can see, all this stuff's been moved up, and this area is not secured anymore, which is a pity for us because I think there was a bit of bad CV management in this. I was concentrating on like fighting probably 2 or 3 guys up here at the same time. So as you can see, if we look at the points build up, I'm pretty much carrying our team again. I've got 1,000 points Then the one guy who surrendered. Well, there's one guy who's still playing on 0, and then I think the other guys are still playing. I don't know. Basically, I'm got about twice as many points as the rest of the team. NATO's more balanced, it looks like, where everyone's on about 300 points each. So I can see some Leopard C1s are being brought up from the rear. I'm guessing it's because they realised this was our main point, so that's where they decided to concentrate. So they brought some forces in around on our flank. Quite wise, because I'd been already shifting most of my tanks up to the rear, but I bring in some BDRM Conkers. Now these are basically Poland's best anti-tank weapon, because their infantry only carry Fagos. The Conkers as a better 80 km unit. So that's definitely a wise choice, and basically it's like it's also quite good to balance the deck up a bit, because you can have infantry which can't be targeted by other 80 km, but they don't have as good a unit. Now as you can see here, there's a lot of units back in NATO's homeland, I guess you could say. I'm not really sure why they had so many units just lying in the wings while we took Michael, but yeah, they have a significant amount of units there. And also there's a lot of infantry in the woods, which makes me a bit pessimistic about whether we can get to the artillery, because as you can see, it's quite hard to get to. They're also continuing to bring in airstrikes, which, even though we're knocking them down, and that's probably getting me a lot of points, it's still draining all my supplies, which means that eventually they will be able to break through. So as you can see now, I'm starting to bring in my own artillery. I'm hoping to use counter battery fire, though. I'm hoping those are against mortars, so my proper artillery can take it out. I try and push in some tanks around the forest to try and knock out the artillery, but they have the Lynx toes set up, and my anti-aircraft defences are too far to the rear to take them out. So yes, I'm just building up the artillery unit by unit, trying to get some kind of focus, but as you can see, there's a huge cluster of units here. If I can get a good few shots off on them, that'll definitely help a lot. However, the attack on their home base is really not going well. The 80 games have done a lot of damage to my T-55s, and all the infantry fighting the woods have been killed. Elsewhere, the attack to the rear has been fended off pretty successfully, and it looks like my other units on the other points of the map are still okay. So the T-55s are retreating. At this point, we've got a points advantage of about 500 points, which is okay, but then again, points don't actually mean anything, because it's total destruction. It's just a reflection of how effectively we've killed their units. And obviously, because there's only limited units you can call on, the better, the kill to death ratio you get, the more units you'll be able to call in and overall outnumber them in the next stages of the battle. Also, while I'm here, because this is a total destruction game and lasts for over an hour, obviously I'm going to be splitting up into parts as I always do, but I might not commentate over the last bit of it, because it's just a random CV hunting at the end, which is quite boring to watch, I'm sure. So yeah, elsewhere, I've regrouped my T-55s. Might not have been a good idea in retrospect, but the fact that there's artillery there and I'm effectively bunching them up. I bought in a BRDM-2 to try and spot them for my artillery so I could knock them out. However, their escort was actually reprioritized when the M60s and the M35 trucks and 80 km infantry were brought in. Elsewhere, I'm continuing to try and buy supplies in to keep my anti-aircraft launchers running. I noticed that there's a double command point over there, so I'm going to try and move it somewhere else. Unfortunately, the recon was knocked out, probably by the 80 km helicopters. Another attack's been launched in on Michael, but the Conkers and the T-55s make short work of it. Also, because I'm trying to do so many things at once, I haven't really got a good defensive formation where the Conkers are in front of the T-55s. Ideally, it would be the other way round. See, elsewhere, their artillery fire has been particularly annoying on me. I don't know how they're managing to spot my units and get such devastating attacks, but then again, it is a pretty close range artillery, so that might explain it.